Perry and another show of Speakers Magazine show, and we have guest Dr. Anthony Kellum. Hey there. So this is Pam Perry, and today we have a guest that I'd like to introduce to some and maybe just present to others, Dr. Anthony O. Kellum. So you may have seen him around before in the Detroit area on billboards and things like that, and he's done some fabulous stuff. He is a real estate entrepreneur on a mission to save the American dream of homeownership for the African American community. He believes property is power. Anthony is the president of Kellum Mortgage LLC, who and is also an author who gained national fame for his philanthropy, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Is returning his Detroit roots with a message of hope for distressed communities and those feeling marginalized or left behind by the city's urban renewal. Dr. Kellum will promote practical steps towards homeownership, neighborhood rehabilitation, distressed and disadvantaged communities, and spread the word that property is power. You know, I like alliteration, right? I'm Pam Perry. Kellum has long fought the notion of greed and selfishness in real estate investing and favors instead the mission-based approach that has made him so successful. If we had band together to take care of the rundown houses on the block, we all benefit, he said. It says value comes up, people make money, and in many cases, lives are changed. Community empowerment through home ownership is my life mission. And that's what Anthony said. Studies indicate home ownership leads to increases in higher graduation rates, family wealth, community involvement, and stakeholders. He is a Detroit success story. So you can read all of his bio in the Speakers Magazine, but right now I'm going to just bring him up right now. Hey there.
I like that. Hi, doctor. How are you doing?
Good. So, you're in this month's issue of Speakers Magazine. Well, February's issue, because this is March now, but you're on the homepage of Speakers Magazine, and you're on this mission that property is power. But I will say something, Dr. Anthony, that I found something you were a 40 under 40, Crane's 40 under 40. We won't say how many years ago that
I
was,
know.
right? But
Yeah.
one of the things my cousin Gail Perry Mason said about you, that you are a tireless champion in the community and that you were blazing the trail as the first minority on the board of Michigan Mortgage Brokers Association. So how did that come about? I mean, you were so young, right? So you're under 40, first African American on this. Explain what that organization is, first of all.
Well, so yeah, I was the first African American president of the
Mhm.
Michigan Mortgage Brokers Association, and that's just our trade organization where we lobby in Lansing or lobby in Washington D.C. on home ownership issues, and that was a great learning experience for me and discovery that you got to be at the table to get your voice heard. So
Mhm.
as it relates to lending in the African American community, just make sure that there's people at the table to represent that certain communities.
Mhm. So what was one of the things that home giveaway? Let's talk about that and where that
Mm.
idea came from. Because a lot of people may not know about what that was about. And I think you gave away 3 homes or 4 homes.
Well, we actually gave away 11 homes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. A couple cars, furniture, and food, and that was a really humbling experience that we did. I didn't have any idea how big it would be and how much attention we get at the time. But we would buy a house and rehab it, and then we worked with the radio station and some local TV stations to find a winner. And the goal was is to kind of teach them about home ownership and becoming a
Mm.
homeowner, those type of things. And it was eye opening because I was surprised to see just here in this area how bad people were living. I mean, their current situation. So,
Mhm.
it was a fun thing to do. It was a lot of work, a lot of stress, um, but a lot of fond memories as well.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I do remember. It just kind of bubbled to the top. So where did this, I guess you say, this mission Where did it come from? What did you grow up? I think something about Highland Park, that was like one of the areas that you targeted. What was your, give us your backstory, I guess you would say.
So I've always been very interested in home ownership, putting people in houses, and that has become more defined and more granular and more purposeful over the years. So, like you said, I started my company. I've been self-employed since 1995, and I had tremendous success quickly. And I also had a long road of learning, a lot of bumps along the way. So I just love helping people. I just thought my message now, property is power, is just more important in this whole Black Lives movement. Really impacted me in a unique way, and I thought about what I've given and what I've done, and how have I really helped African Americans. And
And
I
so you really
always,
wanna speak on that. That's like, are you going around to different churches, different community organizations? Really, what is like the main message? It's like save your money, buy a house, or get your credit together, or all of the above. What is like the main thing that you're telling the
so
audience?
my focus is just trying not to be canned, trying not to be like, you can buy a house, you can get rich, you can, I own 50 houses and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a legacy where people understand that when they get out of college, their first priority is to purchase a home. Or, even if they don't go to school or get a trade or become entrepreneur, I think that it's important that we tell our young folks and raise our young folks the way I was raised by my father: own a home,
Mm,
become a homeowner,
mhm, mhm.
and
Early, early, as
early,
early as you
yeah,
can. 'Cause you
early.
buy it and then it'll you can flip it, and I remember, one particular, family member, they got married very young. They were probably in their 20s, and their first home was in Oak Park, and then I
Okay.
think they moved to a little small house, then they moved to Southfield, then they moved to West Bloomfield, then they moved out of state, and then every time they bought a house, it got bigger and bigger. Their last house that they had has 11 bathrooms.
That's a wonderful story.
It's like our family's like, "Whoa, we remember you way back when on that little shotgun house in Oak Park."
I, you know,
But they just they bought early. They got married young and they bought a home early. It doesn't matter, how big it is. You don't have to save to buy the 5,000 square foot house. You could start small, and it does add up. And I like what you said, it's about legacy. So explain that term, because it's kinda like not an academic term, but explain it how you would to an audience, like a church audience. What is legacy?
as I mentioned earlier, is so my goals have kind of been more granular, more defined. For me, legacy was originally was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to leave my family, my kids something, leave them when I go on to heaven, that I could leave them something. But I think
Not a
over
bill.
the yeah, right, exactly. But I think over the years, we as a community have gotten away from that. People buy houses, man. You can do a lot with them. You can borrow against them to send your kids to college.
Mhm,
That's one of the main incentives. As you pay it down and appreciate over years, you're building wealth, you're building equity in your property. But if you
mhm,
really map it out and you look at, if you start buying homes in neighborhoods and improving those homes, it becomes a domino effect. So the corner stores, the party stores, the hair places, the chicken places, all in the neighborhood that we can go to and shop. And then that in turns invest in the community, invest in the values of those properties, turn around and leave something to your kids, or pass equity alone, or send kids to college, or
mhm.
turn around and sell and move up. Um, so as I mentioned, when I looked at the kind of like, uh, very disappointed, in the whole Black Lives Matter movement, not the movement itself, but just in terms of, it's just like
Okay.
Groundhog's Day. It's like for years, like when I was younger, I was very green, and I just thought making money and wealth and building wealth was just easy, and things had changed, and all you have to do is work hard. Um, but that's not always the case for many people, and there are a lot of impediments. And I've had my own. I've had a tremendous success, but I also equally have had tremendous failure. And one of the things in the book that I'm working on now, I share that it was real estate that brought me back. So it's one thing to talk about real estate and making money, and you can do this and you do that. It's another to fail and fall on your butt, and yet it's those doors that real estate was key in turning my life around in a positive way. And I kind of want to share a more wholesome, more equitable message to real estate, not just so much, I came over here on a boat, now I own a boat. Remember all those infomercials and
Mhm, mhm.
and the girls and the boats and the houses, but more like real
Real
deep
life.
value,
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
deep value. So
I think that people who have great success also had great failures. So anybody who has ever done anything great, they've been at it for a while, but also to the biggest lessons that you have from failures. I just posted something like that on my Instagram yesterday. I think it was Steve Harvey's voice. And so, Steve Harvey is a great success, but he also had great failures. At one point, he was living in his car. So it is something that I think your message, sharing your message because you have it from both perspectives, from the standpoint of what it was like to really like, hey, I'm giving away 11 houses to the point where it's like, okay, now I've got to like start from ground zero and rebuild. But when you rebuild, you're telling people how they can do it with real estate. That's always been your passion, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, part of it is that unlike you, I only have one skill set, So I couldn't go get a job or anything. Like my wife was like, "Hey, you need to go get a job. You need to do something." But I
Wow,
was
yeah,
like,
I'm like, oh, what real estate? Oh, I know, right, right. That's
I had everybody food. I only had one talent, and I was able to, I learned a very important lesson that hit me later in life from my dad. And my dad was very conservative, and he always would tell me the grass as a kid, the grass looks greener on the other side. Like just stay the course. And he would share like, hey, look at this fashion is back, that is back, this person is back. But if you stay there long enough and do what you do, you would turn the corner, you would get back.
Mhm.
So although people were looking successful and doing other things and moving on out of the industry and doing other things, and I used the word looking successful because of social media could be, it's very illusionary, so to speak, and that
That's
can
a good
affect
word
people.
for
That can affect people in certain ways. I
it.
just stayed my course, and we thought about relocating, but then I thought what it would cost me to have the brand that I built here,
Yeah.
from and here in Detroit, uh, going to a different location. It's going to cost me a
That's
ton of money
equity. Yeah,
to do that.
you'll be throwing away all your equity, right? Throwing away all
Right.
your brand equity. Yeah.
Exactly. So I got a lot of dear friends here, and then I also discovered who weren't my friends. One of the things about success that was hard for me was people. I could walk in a room and I would get so much attention. People come up to me. I mean, it was overwhelming.
Mhm, mm.
Um, and then in your struggles and your comeback, I walked in the room and no one would say anything or come over to these same people. The same people was taking borrowing money. People you help, pastors, politicians wouldn't talk to me, or
Mhm.
wouldn't greet me. And
That is uh-oh, what happened? All right, Anthony. He was saying, and it's like that too. It's people who Anthony kind of froze a little bit. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or not, but one of the things that even people who have like jobs and they work for like corporations and they may be like in the C-suite and then they are very at the top and they are giving away sponsorships and they're buying tables at events. Anthony, come back. and and then when you leave, no one calls you, no one even knows you. And it's like, hey, but when I was working at A, B, and C company, it was always about, oh, you're my best friend. And it's not cool. Okay, it's not cool when people are people. So you definitely don't need to treat people like that. Anthony is frozen. He is really frozen. So there we go. All right. So he's going to come back in because his Wi Fi was going in and out. But he was saying about success. When people are successful or famous or whatever, they are all on your side. But then at a certain point in time, then when you don't have that success or you don't have that position in that company, then people don't know you. I always say, don't do that. Oh, he's back. He's back. And I was just telling them, Anthony, about when people are in corporations, even when they have those positions and they're like maybe the C suite and they're the person that can write the checks to the dinners and buy the banquet, this and that sponsorships, and then they leave, or maybe they get fired, or maybe they start their own company. Say they start their own company. So they don't have the big money with that they had working at the big corporation, and then nobody would even return their calls.
Yeah, yeah, I can see
That's
that.
not
I
right.
mean, I learned a very valuable lesson in that treatment, but it also made me stronger, and it gave me an insight on the nature of people, and it also positioned me better as I move in the future.
Mhm.
So,
Good
in
speak.
terms of I'm really understated more now. Um, I go out, people like, "Hey, Kellum, where you been?" And and we're in Kellum Mortgage, and we're doing quite well. And but I don't need to be out on the scene, and I don't need that energy anymore. I don't need those people around me anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and in my personality, I was feeding on that, and
Yeah,
I don't want that anymore per se. That's not
yeah.
something that was good for me. So it was a lesson learned, and
Mhm.
I'm better for it. I hate going through that journey, but I went through it, and God brought me through on the other side, and I was able to, keep my family, keep my wife
That's
and my kids, and that's
that's the
that's
most
what's re-
important. That's the
that's
most
really
important.
really important. And
And you have a message to share. You now
yeah,
have a message to share,
yeah, I think
and
so.
people can
Yeah.
resonate with that message. It's the message of the comeback message, or it is the message where people knew you in, and then they want to know what was the journey in between, and everybody can relate to the journey. I remember a period of time, probably before 2010. So I've been around since 2000. So long, around 2007, 8, 9, they were like really, really, oh, like, oh my goodness. I was like, I could have took this business and just burned it up, right? I was just like, oh, I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of the people, tired of the clients, and that sort of thing. But I made a pivot, and I made the pivot, going after a different target market, doing different things. Social media was coming on the scene, so I was doing a lot of social media training, and it was like a whole new pivot. It was like I shed off all of that old stuff, and I made a pivot into the new. And it seems like every 10 years I do that. So again, 2020. A lot of things pivoted in 2000 in 2020, but I did another pivot as well. And so a lot of it has to do with knowing yourself, like what you said, being more reflective, not feeding on stuff on the outside, but really just getting on the inside, and really
Hmm.
telling people the message that you are telling them, and going to where's like some of the ideal places that Dr. Anthony, that you would like to like speak at. Is Would it be like community organizations like an urban league, or would it be sales organizations like National Sales Network, or what are the Rotary clubs? I mean, those are big too. I just was at a chamber yesterday, and I told the chamber lady, I said, listen, I said, you need to, it was a great network. I said, but you need to have a speaker. I said, even if they only speak for 15 minutes, I mean, that would be really cool. But what are some of the favorite places you see yourself maybe speaking at in the future?
I mean, all of the above. I mean, wherever I can get the message at, kind of on a lofty goal I have is to be um, hold people accountable, and I would like to talk on CNN or talk on Fox News or talk here locally, all things home ownership, all things finance in the African American community,
Hmm.
and I'm unapologetic for that, and I feel inspired to do that, and I feel like that space is empty, and I feel I'm evolved a lot, and I see where I can fill in gaps in other organizations that I'm involved in, like maybe the Michigan Mortgage Lenders Association, Community Home Lenders Association, and all those organizations. I feel I can bring some value there in terms of education that we can bring back and help our community. One of the things I'm really proud about, I spoke, HUD just Lord, I didn't post this because I'm trying to be humble, but I posted, but
No,
I left
everyone should be
myself,
look.
I left myself out of it. FHA just lowered their premiums,
Okay.
and I worked hard. I worked very hard the last 2 years alongside with the Community Home Lenders Association, going to Washington D.C., doing Zoom calls with Secretary HUD and others, and I'm sure there were other trade organizations involved in that. But I had the microphone, and I'm pleased 2 or 3 years later that happened, and
Oh,
that
you're
had
like a lobby. You're
and
like
that
a lobbyist.
and
And
that helps our people directly.
mhm.
When those premiums go down, payments go down. And so one of the things I would like to work on as well with them is remove them after, like they do conventional loans, like after they get 20% equity in the property. I like to see that go away altogether. But this is a starting point, and I'm very, very, very happy for that. Yep.
Oh, that is good. That is good. It's like you were a lobbying. It's like it's all in your mission. It's all a part of that. And you were saying something about being humble. And self promotion is not something that feels like really natural, but it's something that I just call sharing. And I'm gonna take a little quick little break right here to talk about a new quick media coverage, which is something that is new that I just recently launched, another pivot, but it will just help people understand that you can be a great speaker and have a great message, you can have a great book, but if don't nobody know about it, it don't make no difference. So we'll
That's
be
true.
back right after this.
Thank you.
All right. So that was it. That was our quick media coverage. It was very quick.
No,
But
that's okay.
it's a program that basically is so that people can know who you are, what you stand for, what your mission is about. Tell your story, share it, let it become shareable, be found in Google. So you didn't post it, but if I were to Google you, I always say this is being shared on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, that we want to make sure that people understand where we're coming from, what our perspective is, and people are connecting. Social media is now quote unquote social media marketing, but earlier it called social networking. And people used to network because we could do it online, but now it's taken a whole nother kind of a look. But still, people are looking for ways to connect with people, and so you never know, you may be the answer to someone's prayer, but you have to make sure that they know what it is that you're capable of. So if you were part of that in terms of lobbying for that, that is a big deal. So somebody will want you to, like, hey, could you come to our organization and speak to that? And that could be something that just kind of triggers them and say, hey, that's I saw this guy and he did this or whatever. It's just it for media or organizations, it doesn't matter. So yes, I always say, please, let's tell our stories. Speakers are one of the ones that I love, helping speakers really speak their story, because they're like, if you put them in front of people, they're good, but for them to say the message, but for them to promote what they've done, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I struggle with it a little bit, kind of, as you know, just trying to, I went from eating a steak, and I thought that was cheating. Everybody's out playing golf or somewhere, and I was like, that's not me. If I can help people, and I can, that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to talk about and tweet about if I can. But
Mhm, mhm.
I tell people, my daughter, she's probably watching this at some point. She's one of those social media people, and she's always looking at people, and I'm like, hey, that's all an illusion. You can't believe all that's going on.
Well,
It's like,
it's gonna look, that would be like, say, for instance, you have a book, and you have a book, you have a new book coming out, and you just slap any cover on there. Well, some cover you did on your computer. No, you want to put the best foot forward. You wanted to have a really nice cover, because
mhm,
people do judge a book by its cover. So you just putting your best foot forward. So in social media, people are just putting their best foot forward. Now, sometimes it can go a little bit too far. I mean, people will go and rent houses and cars and then pretend like it's theirs. Now, that's a whole nother thing.
yeah,
But in terms of just putting your best foot forward, that's like what we would do with anything. You just want to make sure that your brand is polished. So it's not, I will, I did a whole podcast on that people do go a little bit too far with the hype and a little bit too fake. But I think that's just the era that we're in right now. But I do think people should put their best foot forward and actually just tell their story. There's some people that I love following on social media. Gail Perry Mason is one. We kind of
mhm.
mentioned her. I mean, she is who she is. You meet her in person and you see her online, and she is the exact same thing. So
Very, very genuine, very
very
genuine, salt
exact.
of salt of the earth.
Yes,
Salt
yes,
of the earth. I love Gail. I need to reach out to her.
yes. Her
Seriously,
son is getting married too, by the way. So that's another little
nice.
thing.
And she
Yeah,
was one of those. I mean, whenever she would see me, we would talk, and
yeah.
she was
And real
genuine, and
talk. Real
and that
talk.
always left an impression upon me.
Mhm,
So
mhm. She's in the
yeah,
finance. She's in the finance, but so you guys all kind of like in the same kind of area, and
a little
you
bit of
really,
space.
yeah, because you're really concerned about our people. So you're really concerned about that people have wealth and legacy for their families, for their community, that no one's left out. Your line is property is power, and the same thing with her. She's teaching kids the money camp and all that kind of stuff, and it really goes together. And she speaks a lot too. And it's like whatever is your motivation, that's what you're going to speak on. That's your mission. That's your motivation. That's what I put you in a room, and pretty soon you're going to be talking and teaching people about what it is that you do so that people can actually understand about wealth building through real estate. That's really what it is, wealth building through real estate, which is like very simple. Entrepreneurship. I have another client, Dexter B. Jenkins. I would like to introduce you to him. Dexter B. Jenkins talks about that there's three ways for you to really build wealth: stewardship, obviously that, ownership through real estate, and then also entrepreneurship. And that's basically it. He calls it like those are the ways where most millionaires are making their money. They do some other things as well, but most of them are always entrepreneurs. They are entrepreneurs and they have some kind of real
Hmm.
estate. That is really, really like the main thing. So, what is the name of the book that you're working on, or do you have a title yet?
So one of my goals is to create the Property is Power brand, very similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Okay,
So
okay.
my first book was Property is Power: Building Wealth in Distressed Neighborhoods, and I'm still working on the title Property is Power. The comeback Property is Power. I'm working on that kind of the name a little bit,
Mhm.
but I'm just about done with it. I just don't. Still working on the name, and I got a lot. I finished the book a few times, but I just want it good.
Yeah,
I want it to be really, when someone sit down and read that book, I want it to be good and not canned. I want it to be
like
knowledge
it.
based and very helpful.
Mhm.
And so until I'm in no rush. It's not there yet, but it's pretty close.
Okay,
It's
but
pretty close.
I do like Property is Power. You just need a subtitle, is what you're saying.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
just need a
yeah.
subtitle. Yep,
Subtitle.
exactly.
It'll come to you. It'll come to you. So,
Right.
right now we are almost at the end. I'm gonna put your website up, but what is it that you would love to leave with our audience right now? Put your website there.
I think like people are concerned about interest rates, and that may be pausing them to make certain decisions. But I tell people, the 3 and 2%, that was kind of an anomaly, and
Mhm.
interest rates are kind of in that 5, 5.5, 4 and 3 quarters range. 6%, that's kind of the sweet spot, historically speaking. So don't let that stop you. Refinancing, I would highly recommend people do that, even in today's interest rate market environment, mainly to make sure, because you still got strong equity positions. So why lose your equity if the value, if you think about '08 and how things went down and how people lost millions of dollars in equity, why not take that, have that money there to invest, have that money there to sit through whatever tough time that may be coming or may have passed. Use your home as an opportunity. Don't lose your home. Don't take risks with your property. But if you
Right.
have a strategic opportunity that you want to do, that's what it's there for.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
I
that's
love
it.
that.
And then listen, if you want me to come out and talk to anyone, I mean, I'll come and talk to anybody anywhere. I mean, I go to the boys club, boys scouts, coffee and donuts.
Right. But I can tell you're passionate about it, and that's one of the main things, and you care. And that's one of the key things about all speakers that are in the magazine. They care. They're you were in this magazine. There were more men in this magazine than any issue. It was really interesting. Hotep was in here, Dr. Akmal, you, Charlie Winburn. It's a more issue, but it was like really a good issue. People can go to speakersmagazine.com and actually download. But yeah, you have a passion for this, and you have a knowledge base of you're 40 under 40 back uh when you're just starting out. I looked that up. I said, wow. I said, I could. That was in what year was that? I was like, okay. But yeah, you were doing it way back when. So that's how I know that
Yeah.
you and Gail, because she had a quote in there from that as well. So thank you so much, Anthony, for really joining us today. This has been really, really good. I just wish you well. KellumMortgage.com. People reach out to you, have you come and speak. I could When I asked you what were the things that you want to leave, you read off like, okay, we should have took up a notepad at that point because you were like, yeah. So yeah, so I know you got a lot of information you want to share. So thank you so much for joining us today on Speakers Magazine Show.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's good to be here. And thank you so much. And keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thank you. We will. We do this every single month. The magazine, the March issue is out now. So we will talk with you later and you enjoy. Bye bye.
You have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.